The holidays are a wonderful season, and it stretches from before Halloween till after New Year's Day, and all that time we're bombarded with wonderful food opportunities, things we can eat that we really, really like. And at the same time, a lot of people are worried about gaining weight, and they go ahead and eat, and then they suffer the consequences later. So today, while I prepare some pecan pie bars, I'm going to talk about some approaches you can take. To start with, I've got 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, and to that I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of brown sugar that was packed, and then I have 1/2 cup of unsalted butter. Now, I do recommend that you use unsalted because you can control the amount of salt that you put in. That's a kind of a confusion to a lot of folks. Why use unsalted butter and then add salt later? Well, it's simply so you can control the amount. We're just going to cut those together until you end up with fine crumbs. Now, back to what I was mentioning, the approach here, you have a couple of options. One is to not do anything. Just go ahead and eat as you already have and suffer the consequences later. A second would be to look at the kinds of things that you eat and eliminate those that aren't really your favorites. Key in on eating only those things that you really, really like. Another one would be to eat less of those things you really like and eat less of those things that you don't really care about as well either. And the third one is the one that I'm going to do today. It's sort of a recipe modification or a substitution. Instead of pecan pie, for instance, you could eat pumpkin pie, which has fewer calories. The elimination might be that you eat the pumpkin pie, but you don't eat the crust, because that's where a lot of the fat and the calories come from with that. With this one, we're substituting a pecan bar for the pecan pie. Now, you don't want to do this with the thing that you really, really like. So if your favorite thing on the holiday menu is pecan pie, then leave that one alone and look at modifying something that's not really your favorite. And if you're the cook, you may want to ask around, because the thing that's not your favorite may actually be somebody else's. But if you're just going to make a pecan pie that you bought at the freezer, and just because pecan pie is traditional, then that's the time that you want to use a recipe or a change like this. So we're going to continue to cut this in until we get it nice and fine. Okay, you get this down to a nice crumb size here. You can go a little bit finer if you want, but you don't want it to get too fine, because what's happening is the fat is coating the flour particles, and we don't want it completely covered. So we want the fat at room temperature so it can start coating some of them, but you don't want them all melted, or all the flour will get coated and it'll just be too crumbly. So that we're going to go in here, I'm just going to use my hand because we want to pat this down nice and firm. This pan is untreated in any way. We didn't grease it or spray it with a nonstick spray because we just want to, the fat is already there in the crust, and so we aren't going to need any more in addition to that. Pat that down firmly, put that in the oven at 375 degrees for about 20 minutes, and when that's done, we've got one of the crusts all ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the next stage, which is the topping or the filling. Now for this, I'm going to use 2 eggs, and we're going to use large eggs, as most recipes do. 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of chopped pecans. Now, if you want to be really fancy, you could use pecan halves, but it's going to be a tedious process to lay those out so that they're really pretty. Now, this is one of the ingredients that you have some options on. This is 1/2 cup of corn syrup, and pecan pies generally can go either way, either with light corn syrup or dark. So whichever is your usual preference, that's the one I would use for this recipe. This recipe really has an advantage of looking from pecan pie to this, because pecan pie often will have as many as 600 calories or more per 1/8 of a 9-inch or a 10-inch pie. That's a lot of calories you're dedicating to a dessert. So if you can find something like this, which has 150 per square, you get to eat a little bit less, but you by far come out ahead. I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla and 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter that in this case is melted, because we're not trying to make a flaky or a crumbly crust here. We're just trying to get this mixed in with everything else. And then here's the tricky part, the 1/2 teaspoon of salt, the part that everyone goes, well, why are you putting that in when you're making sure everybody's using unsalted butter? Now we're stirring these together well, and you can mix the eggs together a little bit at the beginning if you'd like, just lightly, and then just stir it together. You don't want to get a lot of air in there, but if you do have some big chunks of brown sugar, you may actually want to take a little bit of time before you add some of the other ingredients and actually break some of those down. But we don't want a lot of air in it because it will make the top of our bar kind of foamy looking when it bakes until they pop out and then the bubbles set and it doesn't look quite as pretty. So here we have the crust. It's nice and golden. It was in the oven for 20 minutes. And we're going to pour our filling over the top of that. And then this is going to go back in the oven. And you can be mixing the filling while the crust is baking. That's going to go back in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. Again at 375 degrees, just until the filling is set. And it will be set. You can press on it lightly and it will spring back. It's very similar to the way you check to see if a pecan pie is done. Again, 375, 20 to 25 minutes, and you end up with this great bar. This recipe makes 24 servings, and again, that's one of the tricks to getting through the holidays intact without gaining weight, is not eating more than you should. So that's the size of one of the 24 servings of a pecan pie bar, and serve it with maybe a little bit of chocolate, because no meal is complete without a little bit of chocolate to go along with it. And then maybe some apple cider. You can use this as a come and go kind of party treat, or something for the family after they've cut down that old Christmas tree. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.